Alright guys, so I'm going to go over the semester review. It's going to be in a couple different parts. The first part is going to be the first 20 questions, okay? Alright, so let's start off with question number 1, okay? And this little r is a rotation, alright? And we're going to rotate it 90 degrees about the origin. And if you can recall, in your notes, where we talk about rotation, which is in our transformations notes, as I flip to that part, rotation, we are actually looking at this area right here. And we want to focus on the one that says degrees, 90 degrees rotation about the origin. Okay, and if you notice, what happens to our x and our y? They switch places and our y becomes negative. So let's go ahead and write that down for reference. So x comma y becomes negative y comma x. All right. So let's get each of our points. So our point Q, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 comma 5, becomes negative 5 comma 1. Notice how they switched places and the 5 became negative. Our R point, which is 1, 2, 3, negative 1, when it switches places, our 1 actually becomes positive and 3 stays the same. Our S point, which is 1, negative 1, okay, they switch places, it becomes 1 comma 1. And T, which is 1, 2, oh shoot, this is a negative 1. Sorry guys. Negative 1, 1, negative 1. Okay. This is a negative 2, 1, 2, 3, positive 3. Okay. So they switch places and it becomes negative 3 comma negative 2. Alright, so that's rotation. All right, now we're going to look at translation. The big T stands for translation. Okay. The 2 is our x value that we're moving. The y is the y value. The negative 5 is going to be the y value. So our x value, we're going to move right and left. Our y value, we're going to move up and down. So let's start off with R. We're going to move that point 2 units to the right because it's positive, and then 5 units down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is going to be our R prime, and that point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to be positive 5 comma negative 6. Our Q point, we're going to move 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we end up right here, and that's Q prime. Okay. So we end up at 1, 2, 3, comma 0. Okay. Our S point, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. That's our S prime. We end up at positive 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6. And then our T prime, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. Okay. And that would be 0 doesn't move side to side, but it goes down 2, so 0 comma negative 2. All right, let's go to number 3. Okay, so now we're looking at reflection, and there's 2 ways you can do it. All right, so in reflection, when we talked about it, just get my notes out for that. When we talked about reflection, okay, we're looking at this one that talks about the line of reflection being y equals x. Okay, so what happened to our x and our y is that our points flipped. Okay, so that's one way you can remember it, and I'll write that out here. So x comma y becomes y comma x. Or we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Took me 5 units to get down to my line. So I'm going to go 5 units away to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be my t prime. And that point is going to be 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, negative 4. My s prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to go 6 away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1. My a prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to go 12 away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right here, a prime. And that would be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 7, negative 5. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. 7, negative 5. And then my L prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's my L prime, which would be at 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be 4, negative 7. All right. So again, you could have also gotten these points and just flipped your x and your y, and you would have gotten your answer. Okay, let's look at the next one, number 4. So for this one, we're going to write a translation. Translation would be said with a capital T. We're going to go ahead and use the vectors just the way we did in question number 2. Okay. Now my x value is going to tell me how to move from t to s going right and left. So since we're going right, it's going to be a positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So positive 5. From here, I'm going to do my y value, which is up or down. In this case, we're going to go up to get to s, so that's positive 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's all you have to do for that one. The next one, there's a couple things we have to do. So we're looking at a rotation 135 degrees of E about Z. So that means E is going around Z. But first, we need to figure out what degree measure each of these angles are so we can move it 135 degrees. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 angles. So I'm going to divide 30/60 divided by 8, which will give me 45. So each angle is 45 degrees. Okay? All right. So now to figure out 135, what you can do is you can divide 135 divided by 45, and you would get 3. Now, when we do rotation, we always go counterclockwise. Okay, so we're going to go the opposite way of a clock. So if a clock goes towards the right, I want you all to go to the left. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, because that's what we said, 3 spaces around, and my answer would be S. Okay, that's where I would end up. All right. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next page, to questions 6, 7, and 8. All right, so for question number 6, we want to find out what the length from B to C is, okay? And since we have a number line, all we need to do is add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, not add. We need to count how many units it takes to get from B to C, and in this case, it was 5. For the next one, we want to find out what the midpoint is from A to C. So first we need to get the distance from A to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 units to get from A to C. So half of that distance would be 4. So let's move 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I end up at 0. So 0 is my midpoint. The other thing you could do is the formula that we talked about on a number line, which my notes have randomly disappeared. But anyway, that formula is going to be A plus B divided by 2, where my A is -4, plus my B, 4, divide that by 2. So -4 plus 4 is 0. And when I divide 0 by 2, I still get 0. So we get the same answer whether you count or you do the math for that. Now for the next one, what is the 1/3 the distance from B to D? So I want to see where we land on the number line, okay? So first thing we want to do is see how many units it takes me to get from B to D. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it took me 6 units. So what's 1/3 the distance of 6? Well, 1/3 times 6 would give me 2. Some of y'all math people can figure out that every 2 is a third, which is great. If you can do that, awesome. So then 2 units, 1, 2, I would end up at 1. That's the answer that I'm looking for, okay? All right, let's move on to number 9. Segment PQ is 5. Okay, so I gave you a line. Let's go ahead and fill in that information. So PQ is 5, and PR, which is the whole thing, is equal to 18. I want to find out what the measure of QR is. Well, if part of it is 5 and the whole thing is 18, it's simple subtraction. 18 minus 5, and I end up with 13. So the missing value is 13. So for the next one, we're kind of using the same concept, okay? We have been given the measure of angle BOC, which is this angle right here, it's 27. Angle AOC, the whole thing, I'm going to go ahead and mark it like that. That is 47 degrees. I want to find out what this missing angle is. So, same concept. I have a part of it. I want to figure out what that missing part is to get the whole. So I would subtract 47 minus 27, and I'd end up with 20. So the measure of angle AOB is 27. All right, so this next one, it's basically all words. B is between A and C, AC is 40, AB is 22, BC is 2x. We want to find the value of x, but we need to draw the picture. So whenever you see something like this, B is between A and C, basically we want to draw a straight line with our endpoints being A and C. Now B can be anywhere in between, doesn't really matter, as long as it's in the middle somewhere. Okay, so AC, the entire thing, is 40. AB is 22. BC is 2x. So these two parts, when I add them together, will give me the whole. So 22 plus 2x equals 40. Okay, so 22, do our math, subtract it from both sides. We end up with 2x equals 18. Divide both sides by 2. I end up with x equals 9. And that's that. Okay, so for the next one, 12 and 13 actually, we just want to write the equation, okay? So here we have two angles that are adjacent and they make a straight line. So these are known as a linear pair. Make sure you remember that because that is on your vocab test. And a linear pair, because they make a straight line, are supplementary, so they equal 180. So what am I going to put between these two? X plus 3x minus 8 will equal to 180. Now looking at these two angles over here, these two angles, they're opposite each other from two lines that intersect. And that means that these are vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. That means that what am I going to put between these? An equal sign. So 60 equals 2x minus 10. All right. Next question, number 14. BX is the bisector of angle ABC. So what does that mean? That means that this line cuts this main angle in half, 2 equal halves to be exact. So these two angles are congruent. So ABX, which is 2n minus 5, and XBC, which is 4n minus 23, are congruent. We want to find out what the measure of XBC is. So my first step is to equal these out. 2n minus 5 equals 4n minus 23. So let's do our math. Subtract 2n from both sides. Negative 5 equals 4 minus 2n would be a 2n minus 23. Add 23 to both sides. Oops. 23. These cancel. So negative 5 plus 23 is 18 equals 2n. Divide both sides by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So I figured out what n is, but that's not what I'm asking for. I need to figure out what the measure of this angle is right here. So let's plug our 9 in for n. And we end up with 4 times 9 is 36. Minus 23, we end up with 13. So the measure of angle XBC is equal to 13. Moving on. All right, so let's look at 15, 16, and 17. So we have angle 1 and 2, and they're complementary angles. That means that they equal to 90 degrees. So if angle 2 is 34, we want to figure out what 1 is. Well, we would do 90 minus 34, and we would end up with 56. So angle 1 is 56. 16, 1 and 2 are supplementary, equals to 180. So if 2 is 34, what's 1? Well, same thing, except now we're subtracting from 180. So 180 minus 34, we end up with 146. For 17, 1 and 2 are congruent. That means that they are equal. So if 2 is 34 and they are the same, then 1 is also 34. All right, so for this next one, there have been different ways to come about the answer. I've had people tell me, well, there's only 3, so I can go 3, 6, 9 and end up at 10 over here. Or they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or they draw every single one until they get to 10. There are many different ways you can go about it. Whatever works for you is what you should do, okay? So I like to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 10th figure in the pattern would be the one with the dot on top. All right. Let's move on to the next page. All right. So we're going to start off with this proof, and it's a simple algebraic proof. So we want to see how our given 10x plus 5 equals 25 proves that x equals 2. Okay, so our first statement is always our given. Okay, now what happened from 10x plus 5 equals 25 to 10x equals 20? Well, notice how the 5 is no longer there, and 25 went down to 20. So they subtracted 5 from both sides, which would be the subtraction property. Then we have x equals 2. So how'd they go from 10x equals 20 to x equals 2? Well, they divided both sides by 10, which would be the division property. Okay, and that's all for that one. Now let's go on to the next one. We're in conditional statements. All right, if you can recall, after our if, that's our hypothesis, or our P. After our then, that's our conclusion, or our Q. All right, so for our converse, our P and Q switch. So if Q, then P. So when we write it out, it's if cats meow, then dogs bark. Okay. Now when we go to our inverse, they stay in their same place, but now they become negated, which means they're negative. So negative P, if negative P, then negative Q. If dogs don't bark, then cats don't meow. Notice how they're in the same place? They're just negative. And for the last one, the contrapositive, they switch and they become negative. So not Q, if not Q, then not P. If cats don't meow, then dogs don't bark. Okay, and that's it for right now. See you on the next video.